Welcome to the Matt Wilkie podcast.
Okay, so we're on to part 2 because the recorder actually ran out. James Musselwhite has recently become a target after so many years. Even got bitter because he got banned from the forum. Now, he's targeted also at the same time Tim Potter. Tim Potter is an ex-US, I think he was the Marine. They had actually done nothing to Ivan whatsoever. He was a moderator, same as James Musselwhite. And it's this time I started investigating Ivan himself because he's just so mental. And then I've seen stuff going back to 2005. And then when I worked forward, I then come across stuff relating to Chris Bennett. Chris Bennett works on the internet. He's a long-time expat in the Philippines, along with Perry Gamsby, who writes things like Expat 101 and various books online. But getting back to Christopher Bennett, because now we'll get into how Christopher Bennett ended up getting harassed for a long period of time. Christopher Bennett had a relationship with a Filipino woman who had a child from a previous relationship, but he'd started bringing up the child as his own. You may still find a blog called For the Love of Rex. Rex. Because he tried to, because he was very attached to the child, tried to look after the child. But this is what happened. There was Christopher Bennett's, I think Paul Whiteway Paul Whiteway. Sorry, not Paul Whiteway. Paul Petra was with Christopher Bennett's, and there was another expat. The other expat basically took Christopher Bennett's partner from him. He actually turned around and said how easy it was to actually take somebody's partner, blah, blah, blah. And there was a Shabu user, allegedly. So he took this partner, and then the conversation between what happened, I believe Chris Bennett's actually posted on the forum, Living in Cebu, explaining that this person, be careful and wary because he proactively tries to get your partner to go with them just for the fun of it. Even Iliad cottoned onto this conversation, and there was a load of other stuff that went on. It ended up with the conversation getting to the point where Chris had separated. This guy was now going out with this girl, but it also managed to get her addicted to Shabu. Chris Bennett was paying a amount as a child support, but the agreement was that he would have access to the child. The first month that he paid, they never brought the child, so he didn't pay the second month. So then they filed a case of, I think it's called child cruelty. It's just the way the wording of the legal system is the case they put together for it. But basically, he hadn't paid for the child support. Bear in mind, it wasn't his child anyway, so it wasn't a legal binding thing. It was a case of he was doing it out of wanting to look after the child. But what happened is they filed this case, put it in the newspaper, and Chris went along to the court. The other couple didn't show up. They didn't appear. As such, it was thrown out of court. But also, Chris Bennett put forward all his information and had his name cleared. Now, discussing this with Chris Bennett, because he mentioned it, and then I went and found it. But I met him at a restaurant in Cebu because what happened is I started going through this list of sexpats, wall of shame, and contacting each person and asking what the issue was and why even was targeting them. And this one was with Chris Bennett. He said it was to do with this guy where even had started stirring it on the forum, making out that Chris was XYZ and this guy was a victim, the guy that stole the girlfriend, but even though he was a drug addict and later has had multiple rape cases filed against him by different individuals from different places. But Chris Bennett brought me his documentation when I met him, and he had all his court letters and he had all his information there, and he showed me, look, this is this, and it was very clear that Chris was the actual victim here. But he'd said he'd also sent it to Ivan Iliadis, but he just ignored it. Because obviously he would have to admit he was wrong. This is the part of the guy being mental. But this goes on. I mentioned the Rotary Club. Chris was also I think he was the president of the Rotary Club on Mactan. I'm not 100% sure. He was certainly involved with the one on Mactan. The Ivan Iliadis was a member of the Bohol Rotary Club, but he was managing some project and the money was being pilfered. So there was something very strange with his relationship with the Rotary Club, whether the Rotary Club members were stealing or whether it was him. Who knows, because everything I've seen relating to Ivan so far, I've managed to find other things that contradict it, which gets me on to meeting up with other expats, because I started going through these different people. They were on the list, and each one was disconnected, because you turn around and go, no, he made this up. Here's the evidence to prove otherwise, blah, blah, blah. Now, you heard that I mentioned about the guy with the assault case, where he filed a case against Paul Petra. Now, because he had actually contacted myself relating to trying to get Paul arrested, and then provided me with information relating to why he had actually managed to get to Cambodia before anything was actually actioned, Ivan then wrote about him. He took a photo of this guy that he'd stole from the guy's Facebook page by pretending to be a woman, befriending his wife to access the personal images. He took a picture of the guy with his wife and her cousin in their home and posted that this guy was living with his wife and a mistress. Yes, this guy is that twisted. He does this stuff all the time. Not the guy in the picture, but Ivan Iliadis. So you will find 70-80% of the people he writes about have done nothing wrong whatsoever. If anybody's done anything, it's normally they banned him from a forum somewhere. But let's continue. The list of people he's attacked or been following around and writing about probably extends to about 20 people or more. Some of them go back to 2005. Some of them go back to the Rotary Club, because that's where he originally started having a fit about whatever it was. But also, his life in the Philippines deteriorated. He had set himself up for retiring in the Philippines and failed at it, and now sits somewhere in France whinging about the Philippines and writing this rubbish. He obviously couldn't financially make it, and instead of just taking on the chin, rebuilding his life and moving on, or rebuilding his life and going back with more money, whatever, he just writes rubbish. So, what about accusations of me stealing money from somebody? I've never stolen a thing in my life. I've never needed to. What he's talking about, though, is a guy called Sean Peterson. Sean Peterson is actually a lie. The fact is, he is not Sean Peterson. His name is Bashar. He pretends to be an American living in America, but he's a Pakistani living in Pakistan. I traced him back through his Skype and through his emails to where he was located in Pakistan. He's stolen so much money from call centers in the Philippines, it's just not funny. What he does is he claims to be a, agent dealing in solar, but he'll also turn around and tell companies in the US that he owns call centers. He doesn't own a thing. He's a one-man band. But no issue with that. Where the issue is he steals money. Most call centers work week to week in the Philippines. You pay a week and then you get a week's work. At best, you may turn around and get a week's work up front and then have to pay before they will do the next week. What he does is he'll go, okay, well, give me 5 agents, and he'll run the first week. And then it will come to Saturday, Sunday, and says, yeah, the payments normally come in on Tuesday, I'll pay you Tuesday. Can you run 10 agents this week? And then he's now into you for 2 weeks' money. By the time he goes, there's the delay. Somebody was on holiday. It's now Thursday night. And he's like, yeah, it'll definitely be there this weekend. Oh, and then you're into week 3 because he's managed to wrangle it into week 3. But now he's wanting 40 agents. 724, was it? Is it 724? Yeah, 724 care or something. That I think that's the name of it. They lost thousands of dollars because he dumped them without paying them. He's stolen from at least 5 to 7 other call centers in Cebu alone. Myself, he owes me $4,000. But the thing is, when you don't pay me, I stop working. That's as simple as that. So I was paid right up to the last week that I worked with him because I'm very strict. I'll quite happily just send everybody home. So I actually made some money. I wasn't actually losing money, I was making money. But at the same time, he was stealing money off the calls. Because what you do is you have your calls go through, your sales transfers, and say you did 50, transfer them through to the US, and they close that end. And then you come back for your payments or whatever, and they say, only 25 of them were actually sales. I was finding they weren't 25, it was 35 or 40. So we were stealing sales. Now, we work on a commission basis, and it doesn't sound a lot saying, well, say you stole 10 sales. 10 sales is $700. That's what he was doing. He was stealing from me. That way, he was also, with other call centers, wasn't even paying them the money that he should have paid, even if he was stealing. He was costing people a lot of money. Avid Roof were hit heavily. I'm not sure if that was what bankrupted them. Well, brought them to bankruptcy because they were owed so much money. So that's where that story comes from. Did I steal any money? The answer is no. I've never stolen anything. All I did was actually made everybody aware of it. I dumped him myself because I did not trust him. But I also told everybody else, don't use the guy. He will not pay you. Some people have still been ripped off by the guy because they don't listen. Several others managed to avoid it. But at the same time, you have to be aware that these types of people exist in the call center industry. These are the people that are on things like Freelancer or whatever, and they don't pay. They'll get people dialing for security for a month, then just ignore them. They won't pay them, and they won't respond to their emails or their Skype because, quite simply, they're not going to pay. They've stolen your money. That's the reality. Now, the troll continues to write, and if you look at this stuff, it's just